Hey everyone, and welcome to The Shift, a podcast for Alt HR Hive, where we explore the changing world of work through conversations with people who are building, questioning, and rethinking it in real time. I'm Marnie Robbins, joined as always by my brilliant co-host and thought partner, Mindy Hankoop. At Alt HR Hive, we spend a lot of time talking about the signals underneath work right now, the things that feel different, even if we don't fully have the language for it. Think of fractional, burnout, AI, you name it. It's all moving so quickly. And so today's conversation is one that I've honestly been looking forward to for quite a while because it gets to a really big question and when we prepped about this, and it's what happens when the traditional social contract between employers and employees starts breaking down. And today we're joined by Joah Spearman, founder and CEO of Tenure, a fintech platform helping professionals and employers build financial safety nets during moments of instability. Joah is also one of those people that can just zoom all the way out and connect the dots that just kind of makes your brain hurt, but in a really good way. So a little less of a formal interview today. We're just going to have a real-time conversation, talk about where work is headed, what we're seeing, what we're losing, and what we may need to rebuild along the way. So Joah, really excited to have you here. Thank you for coming on The Shift.
Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah. So one of the most provocative things that we talked about was the social contract of work and how that's breaking. I guess to get us kickstarted and like kind of that mindset shift, do you mind kind of in your terms, what what do you think or mean by that?
Yeah. Well, I think we have to back up to the relationship between work and jobs. Work and jobs didn't always commingle in that way. That's something that happened really in the Industrial Revolution. Before the Industrial Revolution, work was something that you did around your house, around your community. It was, you were living in probably a more agrarian lifestyle, something around farms, something around agriculture. And so the work had to be done because that was your way of life. And the Industrial Revolution, in essence, what that did is it ushered in this nature of jobs. And so it introduced the idea that you need to go somewhere to be closer to your job. And so that's when you had people leaving those farm towns that are small towns, moving to cities, the late 19th century, the early 20th century, moving into New York City, Boston, and then the Midwest cities as well, because that's where the manufacturing jobs were. And so what happened is a new social contract was built during that time. And that's when we see things like unionized labor. We start seeing working conditions improving. We start seeing introduction of things like health coverage for employees. We start seeing even things like pensions are created. And so from the 1900s to the 1950s, really, you saw the tethering of this new social contract that said, in essence, your job was a place that you could also rely on for financial stability. Your job was not only your source of income, but it was also the place that you possibly were going to get your health coverage. It became the place where you were able to think about retirement either through a pension and then obviously into the 80s when the 401k became more popularized. And so for about 100 years, if you've been living in, the modern world, you have been living in this world where the contract was if you have a job, then the main tenets of your financial life are being supported by that job, be it health coverage and or retirement. And I think now what we're seeing is the untethering of that contract, where employers are now saying, actually, we are not certain if we are going to continue providing your retirement. We're seeing a lot of companies removing their 401k matching, for example. We're seeing companies do more layoff activities. And even those that aren't doing layoffs, we're seeing companies pull back certain benefits. I think at Deloitte and Zoom, I believe, are a couple of companies have recently announced reducing their benefits. And so ultimately what it comes down to is we are entering a phase where a new social contract will have to be built. And unfortunately, that's getting done in real time by destroying the one that has existed, which workers believe that their jobs are going to take care of their financial lives and their financial stability.
And that is it feels just like kind of one of those mic drop moments, because I don't think that we're hearing about this. I mean, we're hearing about portions of this, but we're not hearing it with that through line that you just so artfully put together, and being able to kinda understand that, this contract that has existed for such a period of time and is being destroyed. Yet what is to replace it? And you're saying it's getting replaced real time, but with what? Like, and
Yeah.
and what is that? Because I don't feel like this is a conversation people are having, that we're seeing what you just mentioned not tied together in one narrative. We're seeing this within news articles, like, and fear tactics almost that,
Mhm.
lost the what you just mentioned around layoffs, and layoffs often measured by lack of AI literacy. But how
Yeah.
is AI literacy even being measured within
Yeah.
organizations, and are
Yeah.
they good success measures? Because then you're seeing then individuals from a place of fear and unknown, employees increasing their usage of AI because they believe that's how success is being measured, whether that's AI literacy or not. And so the cost of even AI usage with the tokens within companies is going up. And the challenge to even then think about, all right, we know the cost of employee, but what do we know? I mean, people think they can forecast that, but what also the cost of AI within the organizations. And so as this is starting to be broken, what is replacing it? As we see people losing their jobs, having a really hard time getting their jobs, and how do they then financially secure themselves? I think people just start to shut down with all
Yeah.
these really big questions.
Yeah, and I mean, I think what I would say is that what's happening in real time is a lot of that kind of consternation and confusion and
Yeah.
lack of clarity, and I think that's happening at the corporate level, the boardroom level. It's happening in the government. It's happening with, I think, even organized labor in the workforce. And unfortunately, we've been on this flywheel of sorts over the last 100 years or so, where government and industry and the workforce, even if they weren't necessarily in sync, they were all generally headed toward the same direction with the same narrative. The government's narrative historically has been to educate a workforce in order to get them gainfully employed.
Hmm.
Industry's narrative has been, if government kind of gets out of the way a little bit of industry, then we can gainfully employ people. And then the workforce narrative has been, if I can be gainfully employed, then I can mitigate my reliance on the government. And what we're
Hmm.
is as that thread is kind of being pulled apart, we're seeing that workers are going to possibly need to be more dependent on the government. And the unemployment system, for example, is not equipped for the AI age. We're
No.
seeing that the industry does not yet have the performance management tools to assess whether or not the things that they're investing in around AI are equipped for the workforce they're going to need in the future. But right
Hmm.
now, they're so addicted to, I would say, the drug of quarterly earnings and stock bumps that
Huh.
they are at least willing to take the risk and find out. And
Mhm.
I think government is honestly distracted. I think, this is not the headline issue. Whether it's the headline issue right now is maybe inflation as a result of the war in Iran,
Yeah.
uh, and then obviously the political noise of you know the administration, and maybe even as we approach the midterm elections, and then even going out beyond that to 2028. And unfortunately, I would say that we're a little bit asleep at the wheel when it comes to leadership around the narrative around the future of work. I mean, obviously there are academics and economists talking about this, but for the most part, the main story we're hearing from industry titans in the AI space, especially, is that AI is going to make everything better. But really, they're selling it under a banner of efficiency.
Mhm.
And the way that corporate America is internalizing that efficiency is through layoffs. And so the way
Yeah.
that being passed down to the workforce is through reduction of job stability. And so I fundamentally believe that we have a window of time, and I would argue that window of time is maybe between now and the end of the lockup periods between, if let's say Anthropic and OpenAI go public in the next year, they're going to have a lockup period of some time of 3 to 6 months. Once those periods are done, I think the narrative is going to be set about whether or not AI is like a job destroyer or if it's a job creator.
Huh.
Um, and right now, I would say I think it's looking like it's taking more than it's giving.
Yeah. I love what
Mhm.
you how you put it in the it's almost like the what used to be like the three-legged stool of government workforce in
Yeah.
industry. And so when you have a seismic shift such as the advent of AI, I mean, we talk about that, we're going to need to be managing AI agents, which we're woefully unprepared to do. Like from a workforce standpoint, but around that social contract, there's also the idea of because we're not paying attention to the AI and advent of technology on the government side, that we don't have that cultural mindset shift from a workforce standpoint because
True.
the companies, the industry's not going to do it. They're there because we have a capitalist society.
Yeah.
They're there to make money. So that's where I think what's really interesting about that narrative is the individuals are now having to step in. There's that fourth peg that's jumping
Yeah.
in. It's not the collective workforce, it's individuals who are starting to read the tea leaves and be able to say, "Hey, I need to start preparing
Yeah.
myself." And the type of work arrangements. Are you seeing a lot of that in your world right now?
Yes. That's a great question, and we are seeing it uh, a ton. I mean, over the last year, we've had the privilege to do what I believe to be one of the most robust surveys of middle class professionals in America, 8,000 professionals. We've asked them questions around their financial stability, around their job stability, around their sentiment, around their ability to replace their jobs if needed, things of that nature, severance amounts. And one of the things that we're seeing is everyone was talking about the gig economy maybe over the last 7 to 10 years. Uber, Airbnb, and DoorDash, and things like that. And that was just the tip of the iceberg. I think what we're seeing is we're seeing a push of workers into both fractionalized arrangements. That's something that's happening. That's happening in HR, for example, significantly. But we're going to start seeing that happen across other functions of businesses as well. And then we're also seeing kind of the 1099ification of workers as well, where certain businesses that maybe used to have 10,000 W-2 employees, maybe in the future they have 5,000 W-2 employees and 5,000 agents and 2,000 1099 and professionals as well. And one of the things that has come out of that is we're also seeing this pipeline of people going from W-2 to 1099 to LLC.
Mhm.
And the pipeline that's becoming more common is this path of, okay, I lost my job or I left my profession, I left my W-2 role, and now I'm consulting different companies or I have different clients and I'm a 1099ing, right? I'm fractionalizing my work. And people do that, but then at a certain point, maybe there's not as much stability in doing that as having a W-2 job. And if you have a tough time at the 1099 existence, then it pushes people who can't go back to W-2 into saying, okay, now I'm going to become an LLC. And in a way, it's a way to mitigate some tax burden, but it's also a way, I think, to fully shift to what, in a way, the government's been telling us to do for years anyway. Whether that goes back to things like Citizens United, which allows companies to contribute to political campaigns more than individuals, or the tax code,
Hmm.
you're almost you're better off being an LLC than a 1099 in some ways, even providing the same services. And so I think the benefit to AI and agents to someone with an LLC is that they can then spin up agents that run their business. Maybe they don't never learn all the same things that you would learn getting your MBA, but you can have these agents that are really knowing how to run a business for you and with you, and so I think what we're going to see is less large corporate employers, more small businesses, and that's going to bring about changes to the workforce overall. Because if the average company of 1950 had, let's say, 1,000 employees, and the average company of 2050 has 4 employees, then you're going to need a different set of benefits, a different set of services, and things that you're providing to the employer layer, to service the workforce.
Yeah, like, and all our policies and laws would have to, like, shift and change to support that, and
Yeah.
I think that depending on the I mean, I so resonate with the 1099 to LLC. I think in our past conversations, we didn't even get to this layer. Joelle, like, every time we talk, you're just like, "Boom, boom." And but I think that's right because even as I was on my journey, just interviewing for my next job opportunity. And because I wanted to work within small, medium businesses, really the work that I was doing and for the value that, I should be paid at for my level of skills and experiences, organizations didn't need me full time because what I would be able to come in and be able to add value and create something and align it. We were just talking earlier, Marnie and I today, that they really only need us to come in and do oil changes. Like if it was a car, we built a car for them.
Yep.
And now we're coming in and helping their 3 or 4 employees, like
Mhm.
really up leveling them to be able to, not just take care of the car, but slowly iterate it, but get up to a point where like, okay, now Mindy, we need you to come back in and be able to do this. But the way that the procurement process is in some of these organizations, as they need to have restrictions on who they can and cannot work with. So I had to set up an LLC in order just to work with a friend
Yeah.
because they required business insurance.
Yeah.
And so I I couldn't get business insurance just as a 1099. I had to get an LLC, which to me was just such a fascinating learning process.
Yeah.
And then everything since then, just around a solo K, and I'm like, oh, I get
Exactly.
to have my own 401k. This is
Yep.
awesome.
Solo Ks, SEPs. I mean, even if you think about things like HSAs and ICRAs that are really growing in popularity
Yeah.
now, all
Yes.
these things are being attuned to the future of work.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see a more kind of fractionalized and individualized set of tools that are going to be being sold. And I mean, tenure, that's a lot of what we do.
Hmm.
Our whole point of view is that you need to I use the word tether a lot. You need to untether your financial wellness from your employer. Even if
Yeah.
you have a good employer, a good job, you're getting good pay, your financial life, unless you're one of those early 600,000 employees at OpenAI or Anthropic, those are probably the only people in this country that I think should attach their financial well-being to their employer. Those people, if you're one of the first 500 people at OpenAI, then great on you, good. But outside of that, I mean, think about this. Even in the last 2 years, look at government, the Department of Education, federal agencies. We've seen layoffs across those industries, even
Yes.
even universities, major nonprofits. These are formerly industries that were seen as kind of impenetrable by market forces, right?
Yep.
Where
Yep.
you could go get a job there and be safe and stable for 10, 20, 30 years. That's changing.
Yeah.
And so I think that the idea, I don't know if we're going to be able to put the toothpaste back in the tube around this notion of job stability immediately equating to financial stability. And so what we're doing at Tenure is basically saying, hey, like start by building a safety net that isn't reliant on your employer.
Yeah.
But eventually, I wouldn't be surprised if 5, 7 years from now, that majority of workers have one or two quote unquote things that formerly were benefits that would have only been provided from their employer that they've purchased on their own, to give themselves a sense of peace of mind.
Yeah. And and I love, Joah, that this comes from a very personal place for you. And I love, like, because it is so important when you start to like think about it. Our financial security is so ingrained in just how we as humans find security. And if we don't feel secure, our own central nervous system and our own emotions, um, if we're not clear on where is our mindset in that or how are we feeling about it, we start to kind of shut down
Mm.
Yep.
and we do go into survival mode, which really creates often less than behaviors that work against us from being able to create and think about the way you are about the future and embrace the possibility, because you need to be able to think about the possibility in that and be able to think, okay, now that I'm not tethered to one employer, what is possible? Well, so much is possible, but if my feelings and my central nervous system are stuck to the uncertainty and fear and anxiety of the financial security and the healthcare, then I'm limiting my own self from all the things that are possible.
Yeah.
You spoke so much to that in your own personal story and why that financial stability, it's the very much the freedom, and
Mhm.
why that's so needed in rewriting this narrative. Could you speak to that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I grew up, I'm from a, f- I grew up in a family living paycheck to paycheck. And that's been the case for generations of my family. And what was really, a blessing for me was that I had a mother who she persevered through so much. I think personally, professionally, I mean, she raised my two older brothers and I as a single mother and was working my most of my childhood 2 or 3 hourly wage jobs. She'd work, let's say, a daytime job in an office, and then she'd work a nighttime job at, maybe like a elderly care home or something like that, or maybe in retail in the mall. So that was much of my childhood. And I saw firsthand what would happen if my mom had job instability. She would, either have to go on unemployment, maybe we'd be on food stamps. And oftentimes I saw that unemployment was not the same as wages, So if you went on unemployment, it was
Right.
already, you were already taking home less money. And so I saw that firsthand. And but then when I was 12, my mom got a job that kind of pushed my family into the lower middle class. And then what followed is my mom had a level of job stability that allowed her to eventually become the first homeowner in my family's history. And my mom's never made more than $50,000 in a year. So it
Mm.
wasn't like she got promoted and she got these big jobs and got big comp. It was just she had job stability.
Mm.
And the job stability was what allowed her to be a homeowner and to take benefit from compound interest and things of that nature. And then she paid her house off early, and then she just retired last year at 64, and she's the first person in my family to
Wow.
really to be to do that comfortably and have a real nest egg that I would consider generational wealth. What the lessons that I got from watching her through that are really attuned to what's happening right now, which is you have an entire class of the workforce who have worked really hard to get into the best financial or the best jobs they can ever get. Especially, I would say this is especially true for women and people of color, where you
Mm.
have people who they worked hard to get to that six figure, right? They're making $100,000 a year. They got their college education, et cetera. And then what happens? AI comes in and it immediately goes after the entry level white collar roles that these people were in. So it's
Yep.
going after HR, it's going after marketing, it's going after sales or customer success, et cetera, call centers. And
Mm.
so what happens is it creates a dynamic where that psychological safety that someone would have in their job, not only do they not have it there, they may not even have it in their industry or their profession,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And so I think what this is culminating in is, I mean, we've seen the degradation of trust in institutions over the last several years, whether that's media, politics, education, et cetera. But I think if you lose your trust in the quote unquote work as an institution, then I think that could breed a lot of bad things in society. And we're seeing that. I mean, we have a kind of an epidemic around men. There are men who've exited the workforce who aren't re-entering the workforce. We're seeing a lot of loneliness. We're seeing uptick in
Mm.
mental health issues. And we're also
Mm.
seeing young people who graduate from college who are struggling to find jobs,
Yes.
right? And now they're competing with older people, mid-career professionals for certain jobs. And so I think there's this, I don't have this message of like AI is bad. My message is really is AI is. And because AI is,
Hmm.
then let's think about the rest of the ellipsis. What comes after that? And I think what comes after that is a restructuring of that social contract. And we need to be entering that with both eyes open. And I think number one is your job is no longer the attachment between work and jobs no longer exists. Work is your skill set and your ability to get that stuff done. Job is your ability to get someone to pay you for your skill set. And right now we're at a low job, high work environment. And so there's this uh, unmatching. I mean, there's this great book that I have here. This is a book called A World Without Work. This professor, a researcher, Daniel Susskind, this came out a few years ago. Highly recommend.
Okay.
Mm.
It really talks about what's happening right now, and he has a TED talk as well. But I think what we're seeing something that's been happening over the last several years, which is people always ask that question. I wonder what I would have done if I lived back then. I would argue that we are seeing the industrial revolution real time. Some people said, "Oh no, I'm going to stay at the farm. It's going to be fine," and some people hurried and went to the city.
Mm.
And the issue right now is the city isn't a place; it's AI. And
Mm.
Mm.
so some people are resisting going to the city, and some people are hurrying to get there. And as a result of that, new things had to be created. I mean, even the people that rush to the city, if you rush to the city to start becoming a skyscraper builder, then that may have been great, right? You were making money initially, but then you could have died on the job because there was unsafe work conditions,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So we're in the same age where like just because you're hurrying to get there doesn't mean you're the safest either. So we're gonna have to
Mhm.
think how to approach this revolution we're going through.
And what's really interesting about that too is we had a conversation with Ali Merchant a while back, and he said some of your biggest AI fans, proponents, adopters in the organizations are your high performers, but not because they're excited about it, but because they're concerned, and almost approaching AI adoption and usage in the vein of panic. But
Mm.
if we look at this philosophically, take the step back into that social contract,
Mhm.
what I'm hearing is almost this look, there's going to be a deconstruction to the contract. So we're going to have some people who are going to hold out on the farm, and they're going to weather some storms and some droughts and whatnot, and they need to shore up their homes and shore up their
Yes.
livelihoods. And then you have the others that are run into the city, and that to me is that might be the way to go. There's gonna be some really big winners, there's gonna be some really people who end up not living in the best flat in the city. So,
Yep.
I guess I'm just yes-anding to what I'm hearing in that, as individuals, at minimum, we need to be considering, I went from 1099 to LLC, and for me, that was a mindset shift.
Yeah.
Right? And all of
Yeah.
a sudden, that mindset shift was literally like, "Okay, I have to take care of myself. I
Yes.
Yes.
have to prepare myself, and I cannot expect that compassion layer from my
Yeah.
clients." I would love that, but I'm not gonna get it all the
Yes.
time anyway.
Yes. I
Mhm.
mean, and I'm so glad that you said the word empower and you said the
Mhm.
word compassion. Those 2 words are so integral to how we think about the work that we do at Tenure, and I think increasingly they're going to be integral to how the HR profession thinks about their work. I think historically, benefits, for example, were seen as a gift. It was seen as something that
Mm.
you're doing on behalf of your worker. I think workers today need to think about empowerment and
Yeah.
what are the benefits that empower me to make the kind of decisions in my life that I need to make. And I think the 401k, I think, was the beginning of that. it in theory, pensions are safer than 401ks because someone else is managing it and it sounds really safe. The organization you work for is going to contribute consistently, et cetera, et cetera. But 401ks were a movement to unburden the employers, but also empower the individual employee to make those choices of how much they're going to contribute.
Huh.
And HSAs are another example of an empowerment tool, right? At the end of the day, you still may be getting served by Blue Cross Blue Shield or whatever insurance provider. But if you're on a HSA, it's really more of like designed to empower you to make those choices. And ICRA similarly. And so I think empowerment is going to be the lens that I think benefits are going to be considered. Cities are doing this already. Cities, 143 towns and cities in the United States have what are called financial empowerment programs. So we partner with these. We're partnering with these in Atlanta, Nashville, San Antonio, and Washington, D.C. So big cities. Um, and these are, in essence, think of these as everyone's familiar with like financial advisory companies like Edward Jones or,
Yeah.
Fidelity, et cetera. These financial empowerment programs are, in essence, the financial planning tool set layer from cities to residents. And the residents that tend to do these programs are people like my mom. These aren't people who are
Mm.
making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. These are people who are making $60,000 a year, $50,000 a year, but they want help figuring out how to consolidate their debt or save money or to become first-time home buyers. So it's a great match for what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And then you also said the word compassion, and I think that that's something that increasingly is going to have to be reconsidered. I think in the past, people believed that compassion was the relationship between a worker and their manager.
Huh.
It was kind of like, "Hey, my manager is looking out for me," or "I have a good manager."
Mm.
When you hear about people quitting, you're like, the number one reason they quit is because they have a bad manager. That may be true, and that may have been true in the past. Increasingly, I think there is going to need to be a change of perspective from the worker to not assign compassion, not auto assign compassion to the management layer. Because guess what? Your management layer may be AI agents, and you cannot put human emotion and compassion onto an AI layer. And so I think what we're going to see is the compassion layer is going to have to level up to the C-suite.
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean that those people have to be all, friendly and all that stuff. What it means is the people in the C-suites are going to need to be more compassionate about, hey, if layoffs are a reality of our business, if we look at the last 3 fiscal years and we've done layoffs every year, then the compassionate thing to do isn't to say that layoffs will never happen again, which every company says after they do a layoff. They're like, "Oh, we did it." It's the compassionate thing will be to say, you know, the reality is we may have to make these in the future as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
Or it may say, "Hey, when you're hiring someone, say this is a 1-year role. This is not a permanent
Yes.
role." Like
Yes.
I saw a job placement for I think it was Anthropic the other day, and it said on the job description, it said this is a 1-year assignment. I'm like, I love that. That is compassion.
Yes.
It's so simple. It's not. It's saying we believe that this role may not exist in the future, so we're only hiring someone who understands that this is a 1-year assignment.
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to this idea of like more of a 1099 kind of mentality.
Mhm.
Maybe that's someone saying, "Hey, you know what? Actually, I'll take the W-2 existence for 1 year."
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think maybe the compassionate thing to do when you're thinking about a job description is not just auto assigning compassion to say, "Hey, the compassionate thing is to make this person believe that the job exists forever." It's no, the compassionate thing may be to say, "We believe that, in a year, agents are going to be able to replace this job, but do you want
Yeah.
to take this job for a year?"
Mhm. Yes. Oh my goodness, Joah, like that is and a lot of that too is allows the difference for someone to understand, okay, we recognize you, Joah, and we know who Joah is and the value you're bringing to our organization. is not just about the value we're bringing to you, and yet you're going to lose your sense of self. Your identity becomes being an employee of us. We know where we start and you start, and where we end and you end, and that you're part of an ecosystem that and being able to set the guardrails and the boundaries and being honest about that. But it's also helping show the difference of like who are we? Like I feel like we've also lost a sense of who our identity is
Mhm.
and what we value. And often I'm starting to see with this change also a shift of people starting to reconnect. That, yeah, what am I good at? What if I'm going to be, doing something or, thinking about what is my role after AI for those that are more, thinking about what's next. If we're not in a place of fear, they are kind of going through an exercise and thinking, yeah, who am I? Like, what do I identify? What is important to me? What do I value? What am I really great at? And what is the difference that I'm uniquely designed to be able to do that someone would pay for? But I'm not losing my identity within a company.
Yeah.
And I'm maintaining that identity. So I could say yes to a year. I even remember one of my favorite employers was so compassionate. And I took a job. They're like, if you do this job really well, you'll be here for 9 months. And I'm like,
Yeah.
sign me up. Like,
Right.
and I'm not afraid of that risk
Yep.
because I was starting to have a sense of my identity and what I love doing and enjoying. And they were right. Like 9 months. Yeah, it was done. We did the agile transformation and it was kind of starting to think of what's next. Where do we get to do this again? And I feel like that was kind of some of the groundbreaking work that has led to, being able to step out and kind of understand the beauty of that is when we do untether ourselves, we get to co-create. We get to build things with others, and it can be multiple things that we're building at the same time. And we get to like partner with people in new ways. But Joa, I want to go back to your financial stability and some of the keys because I think that is so nebulous to people thinking about this. Like, how do I
Yeah.
do that? How do I empower myself financially to create that sense of a safety net? That word that you use, I love that because I think that's so important for myself.
Yeah. Well, just real quick, going back to what you were saying, I'm so excited because I have a lot of friends who I believe did lose their identities in their employers.
Ugh.
And now and some of them have been impacted by layoffs, and it's like they almost get reawakened
Hmm.
post layoff. It's like they start seeing like, wait a minute, I could do this. And it's like, yes, you could. You always could. And so I think in a lot of ways, the deconstruction is going to be a healthy thing for society.
Yeah.
Um, because we need people not assuming that a job is their 100% capacity of their ability to work.
Here, here.
I think part of
Yes.
I in a lot of
Yes.
ways, I think that's contributed to the degradation of government and community in this country.
Yes.
We've had people who say, "Well, I'm an accountant, I'm a doctor, I'm an engineer, and so I don't have to help my neighborhood or my community or my government." And it's like, "Well, no, that's just your job. There's still more work to do." So.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think I'm excited about that. But on the financial safety net, so many people, even to this day, there when you ask them, do they have a safety net? Wealthy people may say, "Oh yeah, I do. I have this nest egg or whatever savings." But a high percentage of people will say that their safety net is their profession. They
Mhm.
say, "Yeah, well, I'm in this industry, so I'm safe." And it's like that's not a safety net. Again, that's a job. It's not a safety net. A safety net, as far as we're concerned, is it's a tool. It's like, it doesn't it's not a tool to do everything with, but it's a tool. It's like a hammer is great, right? If you're building a house, having a hammer is helpful, but you can't build the house only with a hammer, right?
Mhm.
And it's the same thing with a safety net. A safety net isn't designed to go pay for your food and groceries every month or your mortgage and all these different things. It's there to supplement gaps in an emergency. One of those of which being job loss. So for us, that's what we focus on. We tenure we've designed a product that combines a lot of the benefits of, let's say, like severance
Uh-huh.
and high yield savings. And so, in essence, it's a way for a professional to set aside money each month. In our case, it's a 3-year product. So every month they're setting aside 50, 100, $150 a month. And at the end of 3 years, if they don't lose their job or anything, then great. They've saved some money. They made some interest. But if they did at some point have job instability, job loss, then they will notify us and we provide a benefit to them. We give them we give them the benefit of the doubt of not only the money they've saved, but more money knowing that they're going to get a job in the future. And so we're in a way advancing them money that they haven't even saved yet because we know that they are a professional who can get a job.
Mhm.
And so that's actually treating your job like a safety net. That's actually
Mhm.
saying, okay, it's not your current job, it's saying your ability to work is your safety.
Yes.
That's
Yeah, I was
different than your current job as your safety net. And I think, I think what we're doing is just the beginning of an entire industry that I believe is going to prop up around servicing professionals that can allow them to have that dexterity of going from W-2 to 1099 to LLC and back and forth and still have the same benefits and tool set. It's like that's the problem with something like a 401k match, right? Like
Mhm.
if you lose your job, you're losing your 401k match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you have to do this whole cumbersome thing of moving your 401k to
Mhm.
something else. And then now you're deciding, do I still contribute to it? Does my new employer do the same match? You're having to make
Yep.
this new set of decisions. Whereas with us, you're just saying, oh, this is great. I have the safety net regardless of what happens with that. And then you can weigh the benefits of your new employer on the merits of that benefit itself, not and on its ability to be everything for you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I'm really hopeful that we go into an era where workers are empowered in the same way I would argue that the people who once the industrial revolution got going, what happened is there was a resistance movement, and then eventually there was a movement around people saying, "Oh, there is opportunity here."
Yeah.
And people got excited. They're like, "Oh, wow, not only am I someone who can move from living in a farmland to moving to the city, working on some bridge or some skyscraper and learning this, now I can take what I've learned over the last 3 years, 3 projects I worked on. Now I've become a carpenter and I am servicing this small time landlord who I'm fixing up their buildings, or I'm a plumber
Yeah.
working on buildings in the city, and
Mhm.
a class of people start businesses.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see the same thing with AI, where people are going to maybe their employer is going to be the way that they're in a way reluctantly learning how to use something, but
Mhm.
then they're going to turn that reluctance into empowerment.
Mm.
And then they're like, "Oh,
Mhm.
wait, I was forced to learn AI because my employer made me before they laid me off, and now I'm gonna take what I've learned, and I'm gonna start a business that makes this something
Yeah.
that works for me."
Yeah. It and what I love about that, I mean, out of the Industrial Revolution, beautiful things that didn't I mean, they existed, but more for everyone, like vacation, the vacation
Mhm,
industry.
mhm.
Um, and,
Yeah.
um, and, like, giving time back for you to actually be with your neighbors. I mean, there's a sense in farming and agriculture and rural communities that they relied on each other, they helped each other. But I think even when our time isn't to one company, when it's not tied to that one thing, now how might we shift that time to be able to get to know our neighbors, to be able to help use the things that we're good at to go help our neighbor with
Yeah.
something, to be able now I have the ability and flexibility to own my own calendar so I can like get more
Yes,
involved with the community.
yes. I mean,
um
we could be solving a lot of problems with this transition if we really step into it. Things like
yes.
childcare, elderly
Uh-huh.
care, all these different things can be solved with people having control over their calendars,
Hmm.
and maybe that involves maybe take home pay is lower, but if you have
Yes.
more time, then actually maybe that's more empowering to your
Right.
lifestyle. Who knows, right? And so I think in a lot of ways, what I am hopeful for is I want to see workers feel empowered, but I
Yeah.
also want to see employers again, I think the C-suite, I think that that can become a new there can become a push around compassion at that layer where doing the right thing by your workers
Mhm.
may be the right thing for your P&L, but it actually could you could actually back into doing the right thing by your workers too for their lives. I mean, I think about Henry Kaiser, the Kaiser Permanente. So he was one of the big shipbuilders of the 20s, 30s, 40s, and then World War II happened. He's like the master shipbuilder of that era. And one of the things that came out of that was he realized that, man, we need to keep our workers closer to work. And if they have injuries and things, they have to go all the way to the
Mm.
hospital. The hospitals aren't close. So he started building health centers basically
Um,
at the work site, right? And then that's where
Mm.
Kaiser Permanente comes out of that. It's born out of this desire from the employer to keep the workers at work. And then that's when you have more people saying, man, we should provide health coverage and health benefits to our workers. And that did he do that out of the goodness of his heart? Maybe a little, but it also made business sense. And I,
Yeah.
and I think that there's a lot of P&L driven compassion that employers can provide. I mean, I'm just imagining, let's say, for example, fresh out of college students are struggling to find jobs right now,
Yeah.
but the compassion layer could be companies saying, okay, we're not hiring as many fresh out of college students anymore. But what we're going to do is this. We're going to create a 6 month or 1 year apprentice program where it's kind of like an internship. And
Mhm.
the intent of this is we are going to equip the next generation of professionals who know how to have these certain set of skills. We're only going to pay you for a year. Um, but the benefit to us paying you for a year is we will then get the government to partner with us and we will offset maybe some of your student loans.
Mhm.
So the government is like, hey, we're going to nullify some of your student loans because we know that you are now trained in a profession that is going to align with future employment.
yeah.
And there are all kinds of new things that could come out of this that could benefit industry and the
Yeah.
worker and government. And I'm excited.
Mm.
I think we are, you know, what is it? Warren Buffett says when others are greedy, that's the time to be like it's something about basically when others are really eager to buy, that's when you sell
Mm.
or that's when you hold. And
Mhm.
then this line about that, I think that about the workforce. Right now, companies are eager to lay people off. I actually think this is the best time to acquire new skills because if there's a lot of people out there looking for jobs that have old skills, if you learn new skills, then you're going to be in a position not to get a new job, but to maybe start a business with people that have skills that are out on the market.
Yep.
Mhm.
So I think this is a great time for mid-career professionals to see themselves as potential employers and not just employees.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're never too old to learn new skills.
Nope.
I mean, and I am just so inspired by my father-in-law that was on a farm. He had a dairy farm
Hmm.
for forever, and then eventually just could not do that anymore,
Yeah.
and then went back to learn a trade, and I believe it was in, I wanna say it was in, like, iron work. I think
Uh-huh.
it's iron work, and he did that forever, and then
Wow.
he be kind of because he was, like, such a he had such incredible just leadership skills that he maybe didn't shine on the farm, but it
Yeah.
definitely came out in his community work, and put into the workplace for the first time. He was
Hmm.
able to like come alongside the younger people and help them as even he was learning, but to be able to teach them skills of leadership,
Yeah.
in ways that he's just doing through being naturally who he is, and stories and nurturing and bringing them up alongside of him and modeling what this looks like,
Yeah.
and just the excitement of like being able to see the find a place within a workforce like in an older phase of
Hmm.
life that
Yeah.
he wasn't able to retire, and needed to find something else but was able to do that, and find joy. I truly believe in that.
Yeah.
And I just that just like that's kind of like what we need to kind of hone into right now. And I love Joah, like your brain is one of those ones that is always just I feel like is always finding a better way. like, at always seeking. And I think some of us just get stuck, right? Like, what would that next step be? And if we don't have a Joah in our life, we need to find a Joah to help us get unstuck and help us think about what is possible.
Find your Tigger.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my goodness.
So, Joa, I know we only have you for 2 minutes. You have a hard
I
stop. We
know.
need to wrap it
Oh.
up, but I wanna make sure that we are telling folks because I
Yes.
have to tell you what you are
Yeah.
doing, your thought leadership, but then also what you have going on at Tenure. I mean, mind blowing. Like one of my favorite products or services that I've heard in years. So,
Hmm.
please tell us where we can find you, where we can find Tenure, and look you up.
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, Tenure, we're a fintech that we long term we want to help people build generational wealth, even if they don't come from that. But we realize that the point that we're at right now is helping people build a safety net that gives them financial peace of mind and stability despite job instability. And so, whether you are an individual, professional practitioner, um, safety net probably makes sense for you. Or if you're an employer and you are in a position where you, especially if you're an HR leader, you're in the position of being involved in those reduction in force decisions, then Tenure could be a great partner for you as you're thinking about that and thinking about trying to add a compassion layer to already a very difficult transition for people in their careers, right? So if you're in the business of either doing reduction in force events, then please reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn, Joah Spearman, everywhere.
Mm.
And then also our website is just tenure.com. There's a survey on there, and it's a 3-minute survey. And the great thing about that is it helps you mentally start thinking about why you would need a safety net. So that's the intent of that survey. And then from that, then you can get introduced to the product itself. So we don't want anyone just going in cold and looking at the product without really mentally being in the place of thinking about why a safety net is different than their job or just like a normal savings account with a bank.
Mm.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Thank you, Joa, and thank you for being on here. If you're concerned or need a reset and a way to think in a little more elevated fashion, come listen to this again.
Yes.
And come back, replay it. Really appreciate it, Joa. Thank you, Mindy, as always, bringing the crazy question,
Yeah.
like crazy amazing questions.
Yeah.
And hope you both have a great rest of your day.
Oh, you too,
Thank you
Marnie.
so much.
Thank
I really
you.
enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah. Awesome.